Hello everyone. On behalf of sepp.med, I would like to show you a specific example for the model-based system test in this video. Before we begin, let me give you a brief overview of the tool chain. First, we design a model in the Enterprise Architect. MBTAssist is used during the creation of the model. MBTAssist is a plugin for Enterprise Architect and helps to define the properties of the individual elements, such as the edges and nodes. Then, after the model has been built according to the requirements, we can import it into MBTsuite and generate the test cases there. If you want to give it a try yourself, click the links below in the info box to download the software. Now let's look at a practical example together. Imagine that our colleagues have developed a login system. Now it's our turn to use the model-based testing to test the functionalities of this system. What should we do? Well, the first step is to create a model. After we have entered the username and password, only two cases can occur. The login either succeeds or fails. There's only one scenario if the login is successful, which would be a valid username and password. However, it is much more complicated when the login fails. The cause for this could be a valid username combined with an invalid or blank password. Another case could be an invalid username with 3 different options when it comes to the entered password, being a valid password, an invalid password, or an empty password. The same applies to the empty username. As you can see, there are significantly more scenarios that could occur. So far, we have modeled all use cases. Now, let's look at the results, meaning what should happen if the login is successful. A typical example would be that the app opens. If the login fails, the login should, as you would expect, be denied. If we are working with a security-critical app, the account should additionally be blocked after 3 failed login attempts. For the last mentioned scenario, we need a counter for the loop, which can be initialized at the very beginning when we create the model. With a single click, the window of MBTAssist will pop out. Here, in script, we can write count equal to 0. In order to execute the system test, we also need a few preconditions. A precondition could, for example, be that the entered account for testing must be in the database. That means the user has already created this account. In the description of MBTAssist, we can define preconditions and select the corresponding role, precondition. Then comes the first step. Open the app. The login could either be successful or not. Let's consider the scenario with a valid username as an example. In basic details, we can name the step, define the role as a test step, and describe it. In the script on the right, the value can be assigned to the variables that are used in this model. In contrast, the code in test step details is used for test automation. Here we can use a function, for example, insert user, to automatically fill in the username in the app. On the left, we can also describe the expected result. Similarly, for other test steps, we enter the corresponding information in the MBTAssist. Then we want to check if the test results are as expected, namely, if the app opens when the login is successful, if the login is denied when we have entered the wrong data the first as well as the second time, or if the account will be blocked for security reasons when the login fails after a 3rd attempt. That is the reason why we set the role of these 3 elements as VP, which is short for verification point. In the last test step, the function stop application terminates the app automatically and ends the test. Okay, now we have created the model in Enterprise Architect with MBTAssist. Next, we want to generate test cases. For this, we need MBTsuite. First, we need to import the model by clicking on the importer. As importer, we select Enterprise Architect API. Import from a file. Next, we click Read Diagrams and select Login Diagram. Hit the Run button. Now we see the imported model on the left. At the bottom of the console, we see a message stating that the model has been imported successfully. Secondly, we choose a run strategy. Here we choose full path coverage. We can, for example, define 500 as the maximum length of the elements and set the number of loops to 1. Then we press Run to start the test. At the bottom left of the statistics, it is stated that a total of 21 test cases are generated. 68% of the edges and 86% of the nodes are covered. The third step is to run a filter. In our example, we are using the standard edge coverage filter. Press Run. Voila! For the same coverage of the edges and the nodes, we only need 4 test cases. This facilitates the work for us by reducing the number of test cases. Finally, we can export the test cases, for example, as a C file. Simply enter a name and save it. As we can see, the tests can be executed automatically with the code that we just wrote in MBTassist. Okay, today we got an impression of model-based testing. To sum it all up, we created our model with Enterprise Architect and MBTassist. Then we imported the model into MBTsuite and exported a C code file in the end. If you would like to try this for yourself, I've added the download links of the used software below. Thank you for watching.